Intelligence and Deception. How the Allies fooled Hitler before the Normandy landings by mid-1943. The Allies, especially Britain and the US, were preparing for a major operation to land in continental Europe, an operation meant to turn the tide of the Second World War. But a plan of this size was doomed if the Germans knew in advance where and when the blow would fall. That's why one of the largest and most ingenious deception campaigns in history was launched, Operation Bodyguard, whose most famous component was Fortitude. Bodyguard acted as an umbrella for many separate deception schemes. Its goal was to conceal the real direction, timing, and scale of the invasion. German commanders were sure an attack was coming. The Atlantic Wall was being strengthened. Air and naval reconnaissance was active. But the exact location remained a mystery. Fortitude's task was to make them believe the landings would take place somewhere other than Normandy, especially at the Pas-de-Calais, or even in Norway. The idea of a fake army, a central feature of Fortitude, was the creation of a fictitious army, the first U.S. Army Group, FUSAG. It wasn't enough just to announce that such a force existed. German intelligence had to see convincing evidence: camps, troop movements, training grounds, warehouses, transport, exercise routines. General George Patton, highly respected and feared by the Germans, was named as its commander. His name lent the deception credibility. At night and in bad weather, the army appeared to move, with smokescreens, lights, and sound effects giving the impression of a large concentration of troops. Inflatable tanks, dummy aircraft, mock landing craft, and fake equipment were arranged so that German aerial reconnaissance would see exactly what the Allies wanted them to see. Tracks in the ground, supply dumps, even fake radio masts completed the picture of a massive force assembling for a cross-channel assault. Radio traffic and double agents equally important was radio deception. Transmissions were sent as if real units were moving and preparing in southeast England. Messages about supply requests, unit deployments, and orders were drafted in exactly the formats German codebreakers expected. Some were made deliberately too easy to intercept. Double agents were crucial. People who appeared to spy for Germany, but in reality fed it false information, reported that the main attack would hit the Pas-de-Calais. The most famous, Juan Pujol García, Garbo, invented an entire network of fictitious informants sending independent confirmations of Allied buildups where none existed. This web of lies reinforced the illusion. Visual props and smoke. To make the deception convincing, dummy tanks, vehicles, and aircraft were deployed across England's countryside, especially in areas visible to Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights. They were positioned to look authentic from above. Dummy piers, supply depots, and training fields were built. At night, smoke pots, lights, and sound effects simulated activity, convoys, exercises, even gunfire, so that the army looked alive. Fortitude. North and South Fortitude had two halves. Fortitude North suggested a threat to Norway, keeping German forces pinned there. Fortitude South aimed directly at the Pas-de-Calais, convincing Hitler and his generals that the real invasion would strike the closest point to Britain. In southeastern England, the Allies staged large-scale preparations for Fusag, while the actual invasion forces assembled quietly in the southwest, facing Normandy, intercepting and adjusting because Allied cryptanalysts could read much of Germany's Enigma traffic. They could monitor German reactions to the deception in near real time. If German analysts grew skeptical, the Allies adjusted their ploys, adding new fake units or more radio chatter. Seeing German reinforcements move toward the Pas-de-Calais was the best proof that the ruse was working. Night of D-Day, a tactical deception. On the night before the landings, June 5th to 6th, 1944, the Allies launched special operations, Taxable, Glimmer, Big Drum, to fool radar and coastal observers. Small craft dropped metallic window strips to create phantom fleets on radar, mimicking invasion forces headed for the Pas-de-Calais. As the real armada steamed toward Normandy, German coastal defenses still expected the main blow elsewhere. Impact on Hitler's command decisions. Hitler and many in the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht were predisposed to believe the Pas-de-Calais was the logical invasion site. Geography, shorter channel crossing, and heavier Allied activity in southeast England all reinforced that view. Even after the landings in Normandy began, the Germans kept powerful armored divisions in the Pas-de-Calais, convinced that Normandy was just a diversion and the real invasion still to come. This delay gave the Allies a priceless window to establish their beachhead. The human element. The deception campaign also exploited personal biases and habits. German commanders couldn't imagine the Allies risking a landing on the less favored Normandy coast, with its smaller ports and rougher seas. The Allies played to those assumptions. Even a Montgomery lookalike was sent on public visits to be spotted, further muddying the picture for German intelligence. Results. When D-Day arrived, the Germans were caught off guard. Their best reserves were in the wrong place. Even for days afterward, they waited for an actual invasion at the Pas-de-Calais, while the Allies poured men and materiel through their Normandy lodgment. The deception bought time, strategic surprise, and a crucial edge that contributed directly to the success of Operation Overlord. Conclusion. The Allied deception before the Normandy landings wasn't just a clever footnote. It was a decisive factor in the invasion's success. Through a mix of fake armies, double agents, dummy equipment, and psychological manipulation, the Allies turned German expectations against them. It's a story about how intelligence, theater, and human psychology can be as powerful as tanks and guns, and how in war, what the enemy believes can matter as much as what is actually true. This grand deception proved that wars are won not only on the battlefield, but also in the mind. By turning illusions into weapons, the Allies reshaped the course of history and left a timeless lesson about the power of intelligence, patience, and imagination in warfare. Join the ranks of history's insiders. Subscribe to Archival Battles, and never miss the untold stories of war and deception.